A werewolf shifter romance audiobook written by Catherine Stewart. Prologue. The chill of impending winter clung to the ancient stones of Mooncrest Citadel, a shroud mirroring the foreboding that settled over Vorlag. Tonight, under a sliver of a dying moon, something felt profoundly wrong. His wolf, usually a roaring fire in his blood, was a restless, growling presence, nudging at his human mind with frantic warnings he couldn't quite decipher. But Aria, exquisite in a gown the color of twilight, purred against his chest, her touch a silken leash. "My alpha," she murmured, her scent a cloying rose, thick and sweet enough to mask the subtle metallic tang of the strange brew she'd pressed into his hand moments before. A toast to our union, to the future of Mooncrest. He raised the goblet. The liquid swirled like liquid shadows. His wolf recoiled. No. Wrong. Poison. But Aria's fingers traced the line of his jaw, a possessive, almost predatory glint in her amber eyes. He'd dismissed his wolf's unease for weeks, blinded by duty and a carefully constructed image of Aria as his destined Lunar. The elders had approved. The pack expected it. He should want this. As the bitter liquid slid down his throat, a sharp, searing pain erupted behind his eyes, then spread, a cold fire consuming him from the inside out. His vision blurred. Aria's face twisted, her soft smile stretching into something cruel, triumphant. Behind her, the beta, Silas, emerged from the shadows, his face a mask of cold satisfaction. "Fool!" Aria hissed, her voice shedding its honeyed sweetness for a sharp viper's edge. "Did you truly believe you were meant for greatness? Your time ends now, Alpha. This throne belongs to us." The words struck Vorlag harder than any physical blow. Betrayal. Absolute, soul-shattering betrayal from those he had trusted implicitly. He tried to shift, to call his wolf. But the internal fire turned to ice, constricting, silencing. His strength, his very essence, felt like it was being siphoned away, leaving him hollow. He fell to his knees, his hands clawing at his chest, a desperate guttural sound tearing from his throat. The citadel stones spun. The scent of cloying roses became the stench of deceit, a suffocating shroud. As darkness swallowed him whole, the last thing he saw was Silas's cold, hard boot connecting with his temple, plunging him into an abyss where not even his wolf could find purchase. In the encroaching void, the whispers of his past, his name, his pack, all dissolved into a terrifying, formless terror. He felt himself spiraling, not just into unconsciousness, but into something far worse, a spiritual death, a severing from who he was. And with it, the terrifying, agonizing knowledge that he was utterly, irrevocably alone. The cold bite of the pre-dawn air always felt like a familiar hand, a rough, unyielding touch. Aria pulled her worn cloak tighter. The coarse wool did little against the damp chill seeping from the moss-covered earth. She moved through the whispering woods like a shadow, each step soft, purposeful. Her battered basket, woven from tough river reeds, felt heavy even when empty. It always did. Her goal was simple: find enough ginger root and wild sorrel to last the week. And then some dried berries, if she was lucky. Because surviving meant planning, always planning, even when the days blended into a dull ache of quiet sameness. A sharp, metallic tang suddenly pricked the air. Aria froze. Her senses, honed by years of solitary living on the edges of society, screamed a warning. It wasn't the sweet musk of deer or the earthy scent of a foraging boar. This was different. A faint, oily scent that spoke of two legs, of men. And men, especially powerful alpha men, meant trouble for an omega like her. She still remembered the snarls, the condescending glares, the way they looked at her, like something less than dirt, something to be stepped on or used. Her skin prickled. A cold weight settled in her chest, a familiar dread. She dropped to a crouch behind a thick cluster of fern, her heart thumping a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Years ago, she'd seen an Omega girl, barely older than herself, dragged from her family's hovel because she dared to look a patrolling Alpha in the eye. That memory, the girl's terror, the Alpha's sneering smile, had carved a deep groove of caution into Aria's soul. Stay hidden, stay safe. That was her mantra, that was her life. And then, just as quickly, the scent thinned, carried away by a subtle shift in the wind. A deep breath. It wasn't a patrol, not yet. But the unease lingered, a knot tightening in her stomach. What was out here lurking in the shadows of the woods she thought she knew so well? Her quiet sanctuary felt less secure. Aria moved deeper into the forest, her foraging forgotten, because that unsettling scent was back, stronger this time. It wasn't just the oily scent of man, no. Now there was blood, lots of it. A deep, iron tang mixed with something primal, something alpha. Her hands trembled. Every instinct screamed at her, "Flee! Run!" This was not her fight. This was pure danger, the kind that ate Omegas whole and spit out bones. But then, a strange, undeniable pull started deep in her chest. It was a dizzying sensation, like a string being gently tugged, pulling her in a direction her mind fiercely resisted. It was illogical, insane. Yet she found herself stepping forward, branches snapping softly under her worn boots. No matter how hard she tried to fight it, her feet kept moving, drawn by an invisible force. Soon after, she saw signs of a struggle. Broken branches littered the forest floor. A small young pine was splintered, its bark torn. The earth was churned, soaked dark in places. The smell of fresh blood was overpowering now, filling her nostrils, almost choking her. She stopped. Her body screamed in protest, but that strange pull intensified, a warm thrumming that oddly calmed the frantic beat of her heart, making her curious rather than terrified. What followed was a wave of pure, disorienting confusion. This blood, it didn't just smell of violence. There was something else beneath it, something like shattered moonlight, like primal pain. It was a scent that resonated deep within her, echoing a phantom ache she hadn't known she carried. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it was just her bleeding heart. She didn't know what scared her more, the danger she was walking into or the terrifying, exhilarating feeling that this was somehow right. A quiet voice in her mind, a part she rarely listened to, whispered, "What if this is the connection you've always yearned for, hidden in plain sight?" The very thought sent a shiver down her spine. She pressed on, the silence of the forest broken only by the frantic beat of her own pulse and the distant caw of a raven. The air thickened around her, heavy with an unspoken tension. The clearing opened suddenly, bathed in the muted, pre-dawn light filtering through the dense canopy, and then Aria saw him. He lay crumpled against the gnarled roots of an ancient oak, a dark, motionless heap. He was a werewolf, no doubt. His clothes were shredded, blood matting his dark hair, a grotesque crimson smear across his chest. Even in his unconscious state, his raw power radiated, a heavy, oppressive aura that made the very air around him hum. He was easily the largest alpha she'd ever seen, built like a mountain, even broken. His face, though caked with grime and blood, held the sharp angles of nobility, a jaw tight even in unconsciousness. Terror stole her breath. This was the kind of alpha omegas we're taught to fear, to avoid at all costs. Yet, the moment her eyes locked on his still form, that strange, soul-deep pull intensified, tightening into an undeniable conviction. It wasn't just a pull, it was a jolt, like lightning striking her very core. And just like that, everything changed. She felt it, clear as day, a flicker of profound recognition, a sensation of coming home amidst the chaos and gore. It was terrifying, yes, but also exhilarating. It defied all logic, all the lessons of caution drilled into her since childhood. Her personal stakes were clear. Her solitude, her safety, her very life hung in the balance. But how could she turn away? A low, pained groan ripped from his chest. It was a sound of pure agony, a broken whimper that echoed the same shattering pain she'd felt in her own youth. Her heart skipped. His wolf, even in its ravaged state, sensed her presence. A low, barely audible sound, a broken growl, a desperate whimper, escaped his lips. Mine. Her breath caught. Mine? Her mind reeled. The possessiveness was primal, ancient, yet strangely devoid of menace. Only a desperate need. It was a raw, undeniable claim, a lifeline thrown from the abyss. And because of that, her ingrained caution, honed by years of fear and solitude, shattered. It crumbled like dried leaves underfoot. Her body moved on instinct. Without thinking, she rushed forward, driven by a surge of fierce protective resolve. She knelt beside him, the overwhelming scent of his blood and his unique primal alpha essence filling her senses. She didn't know what she was doing. She only knew she couldn't leave him, not like this. Not when her soul screamed that he was connected to her in a way she couldn't yet grasp. Her hand reached out, hesitant but firm, to touch his blood-soaked shoulder. The moment their skin met, a powerful jolt of energy shot through her, hot and bright. It was a connection, a bond, undeniable and terrifying. The journey back to Aria's hovel was a nightmare. Vorlag was a dead weight, heavy and unresponsive. His large frame, a struggle to drag through the dense undergrowth. His body radiated heat like a furnace. A sharp, metallic smell of old blood and fever sweat clung to him. Aria gritted her teeth, muscles screaming. Her own cloak was soaked in his blood, sticking to her skin. Because of that, she knew if anyone tracked them, her hovel would be easy to find. Panic churned in her gut. Finally, the small, hidden hovel appeared through the trees, a dark shadow against the pale morning light. It was barely more than a lean-to against a large rock, hidden by thick vines and cunningly placed branches. She pulled him inside, collapsing beside him on the dirt floor, gasping for breath. The air instantly filled with his scent, strong, raw alpha, mixing with the earthy smell of her hovel. It was overwhelming, a constant reminder of the danger now sharing her tiny space. She quickly lit a small fire, the smoke curling up through a hole in the roof because she needed to boil water. Her hands shook as she cut away his ruined clothes, revealing deep gashes across his chest and arms. One wound on his side looked particularly nasty, black and swollen. It pulsed with a strange, dark energy that made her stomach clench. His skin was unnaturally cold in places, burning hot in others. "Oh, Vorlag," she whispered, the name a clumsy sound on her tongue, the one his unconscious wolf had seemed to call out. "What have they done to you?" She worked quickly, driven by a desperate, almost spiritual need to save him. She mashed healing herbs, spiderwort for pain, wild garlic for infection, the rare moon petal she'd saved for emergencies, into a thick paste. The cool poultice felt strange against his hot skin. While the forest held its breath outside the hovel walls, the tension coiled. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made her jump. She was terrified of discovery, terrified of what would happen if the people who did this to him found him here. What would they do to her? That night, Vorlag thrashed in a fevered delirium, his body slick with sweat. He muttered broken, incomprehensible words. Shadows, false moon, liar. Each sound was a stab to Aria's heart, painting a picture of untold horrors he'd faced. Her compassion warred with her fear. She knew caring too deeply often led to pain, but this was different. This was life or death. She couldn't abandon him, not when her soul screamed that she couldn't. Days bled into nights. Aria barely slept, her exhaustion a heavy blanket. She changed Vorlag's dressings, spoon-fed him thin broth, and wiped the sweat from his brow. His fever stubbornly clung, ebbing and flowing like the tide. She learned to read the subtle changes in his breathing, the soft rumbles of his unconscious wolf. It was a strange dance of caregiving, silent and intense. She watched him, mesmerized by the quiet strength that lingered even in his weakness. A raw, powerful beauty. His lucid moments were few and far between. When he did open his eyes, they were clouded with confusion, sometimes a fleeting flash of wild aggression, quickly replaced by bewildered fear. "Where?" he'd rasp, his voice rough as gravel. "Who?" But then his gaze would land on her, and something in his eyes would soften. A beat later, he'd relax, his ragged breathing evening out. It was because her scent, her presence, seemed to be the only thing that brought him fleeting peace. And then the dreams started. They were vivid, startling. Not her dreams alone, but theirs. She felt the exhilarating rush of running through moonlit forests, the wind whipping through thick fur. She smelled the sharp scent of pine and crisp snow. She heard the distant howls of a pack, a sound that stirred a deep, aching longing she didn't understand. She saw shadows lurking, faces twisted by malice, the same faces that haunted Vorlag's fevered muttering. One night she woke suddenly, her skin tingling, the vivid image of a shimmering, starlit clearing burning in her mind. Vorlag lay beside her, still asleep, but his hand was tangled in her cloak, his fingers clutching it tightly as if he feared she might disappear. A quiet warmth spread through her chest. It was terrifying, this growing tenderness. Her past screamed, "This is too much. You will be hurt again." But then her wolf, a shy, quiet part of her, purred deep inside, a soft, contented rumble. It was a feeling of belonging she'd never known. Soon after, a wolf howl echoed in the distance. It wasn't close, but it was enough to send a fresh wave of fear through Aria. She reached out, placing a hand on Vorlag's forehead. He was still warm, but the fever had broken. He would live. But the pack was out there, and his past, whatever it was surely hunting him. What would happen when he woke fully? Could this fragile, fated bond survive the harsh truth of his world? Vorlag began to heal quickly after the fever broke, like his body knew it had to catch up. He still didn't remember anything. His eyes, now clear, held a deep, frustrating confusion when he tried to recall his past. He would stare at her, a silent question in their depths. Sometimes he'd just watch her, a strange intensity in his gaze, like he was trying to commit her very being to memory. He was still quiet, but his wolf's presence was stronger, a low thrumming under his skin, always aware of her. One afternoon he tried to stand. A pained groan escaped him. He stumbled, collapsing back onto the makeshift bed of furs. Aria rushed to his side, her brow furrowed with worry. "Don't push yourself," she urged, her voice soft but firm. He looked up at her, a flash of frustration in his eyes. I need to remember. I need to know why." His hand reached out, brushing her cheek. His touch, hesitant, yet so warm it sent shivers through her. "Why do I feel safe with you when everything else is a blur?" Her breath hitched. She swallowed hard. "You just do," she whispered, because what else could she say? The truth was, she felt it too. A connection, growing stronger every day, weaving itself around her heart like ancient roots. She didn't know what scared her more, his questions or the way her soul leaped every time he looked at her like that. Deep down, she knew the truth. She was falling for him. Hard. One evening, as the last rays of sunlight bled through the gaps in the hovel, painting the small space in streaks of gold and shadow, Vorlag stirred. He'd been asleep for hours. But then, a faint, almost imperceptible scent wafted in on the breeze, not of blood, but of a deep, ancient malevolence. It was the scent of dark magic, the kind that whispered of pain and suffering, and it made Aria's hackles rise. This was the same scent that had clung to Vorlag's wounds. A low growl rumbled deep in Vorlag's chest, waking him. His golden eyes snapped open, blazing with an unfamiliar feral alertness. He sniffed the air, a deep, primal sound escaping him. "They're searching," he rasped, his voice raw with ancient fury. "They're close." Aria's blood ran cold. They. The people who had done this to him. Her sanctuary, her fragile peace was about to be shattered. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Her love for Vorlag was no longer a gentle, budding thing. It was a fierce, protective fire, burning away her caution. She knew with chilling certainty that this quiet existence was over. His past was not just a threat to him, it was now a threat to them. She had committed herself, body and soul, to saving him. Now she would have to fight to keep him.
Vorlag was getting stronger fast. His wounds were healing, leaving faint silvery lines on his dark skin. It was amazing, like watching time itself speed up. He could walk now, even move through the hovel without stumbling. But still he didn't remember. And because of that, his mind was a confusing mess of present sensations and jarring flashes. He'd wake sometimes, a silent scream in his eyes, clutching his head. He'd whisper words like Mooncrest or Aria, the name of the Lunar from the prologue, and then he'd flinch, a deep, unsettling recoil rippling through him. Her scent, that cloying rose from his dreams, seemed to haunt his waking hours, making him restless, agitated. But then he'd look at Aria, and his golden eyes would soften, his body relaxing like a taut spring. He always seemed to find calm when she was near. Why does that scent make me so angry? He'd ask, his voice rough. And then he'd sniff the air around her, a deep, satisfied hum rumbling in his chest. But your scent, it's like coming home. It's safe. Aria's heart would pound every time he said something like that, a mix of fear and a wild, exhilarating hope. She knew his alpha instincts were waking up. She saw the way his muscles tensed when she moved too far away, the way his gaze followed her every step. It was protective, yes, but also a little scary, because it reminded her of the alphas she'd always avoided. Even so, this felt different. This was him, and his protectiveness wasn't cold or demanding. It was raw, almost desperate. One day, while she gathered herbs, he stumbled out of the hovel, moving stiffly. "I need to do something," he mumbled, his brow furrowed. "I feel useless." Not only that, but he felt an urge to protect her, even though he was still weak. She felt the urge to protect him too. It was a strange dance. Aria watched him, a knot of worry in her stomach. He was healing, but his past was still a dark cloud over him. She couldn't tell him what she suspected, not yet. What if it hurt him more? What if he left? Her personal stakes were rising. Her safe, quiet life was long gone. Now her heart was entangled with a man who could easily bring immense danger to her doorstep. Could she truly adapt to a life where danger walked hand in hand with love? Vorlag slowly started to help with her daily chores. He was clumsy at first, his powerful hands unused to delicate tasks like sorting herbs or stripping bark for weaving. But he tried, and because of that, a quiet rhythm began to form between them. He would gather firewood, his strength returning in powerful bursts. She would prepare food, her small hands nimble and sure. They didn't talk much, not really. But in the quiet moments, their connection deepened. She would catch him watching her, his golden eyes filled with a deep, silent curiosity. His wolf was always there, a steady, warm presence at the edges of her senses. One afternoon, while she mended a tear in her cloak, he sat beside her, simply watching. The silence wasn't empty or awkward. It was full, a soft hum of two souls finding peace in each other's presence. "You're gentle," he murmured one time, his voice raspy, breaking the quiet. He reached out, his large thumb brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. His touch sent a shiver through her, a warm tingle spreading through her skin. "I don't remember much, but I don't think I've ever felt this quiet, this good." Her heart swelled. That was a big thing for him to say because he was always so guarded. She leaned into his touch, a silent promise. Her Omega wolf, that shy inner part of her, purred, not a sound, but a feeling of deep contentment. It was a feeling she'd only read about in old stories, a bond, a deep spiritual connection that went beyond words. She had never known such peace could exist. Maybe this love, this quiet connection, was the antidote to the cruelty she'd always known. By the time the moon was a fat disk in the sky, reflecting off the still pond near their hovel, their routine felt natural, almost sacred. He would often disappear for short periods, exploring the woods, his alpha instincts guiding him. She never pressed him about it because she trusted him. Deep down, she knew he needed to feel his strength return. More importantly, she needed him to come back. And he always did. One evening, as the shadows lengthened and the forest began its nightly chorus, Vorlag returned from one of his forays. He looked troubled. He moved with a new sense of purpose, his gaze sharper, more focused. He had found something that would shatter their fragile peace.
Vorlag's golden eyes were grim. He carried a piece of carved wood in his hand, a small, intricate symbol etched into it. It was a crest, a snarling wolf's head, encircled by a crescent moon. It was the moon crest pack symbol, etched onto a piece of wood, that Aria knew from old tales. This was his pack. And because of that, her heart sank like a stone. "I found it near the old hunting trails," he said, his voice low, a growl lurking beneath the words. And a scent. Old, but strong. The same cloying rose. And something else. Something dark. His wolf shifted, restless and uneasy. Aria felt a cold dread creep up her spine. The dark scent. That was the magic she'd smelled before, the kind that had clung to his wounds. "What does it mean?" she asked, though a part of her already knew. "It means they're looking for me," he said, his gaze distant, haunted. "The false Luna and the Beta." He didn't remember their names, but the hatred in his voice was clear. And just like that, the quiet sanctuary they had built, stone by fragile stone, felt like it was crumbling around them. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold back the tremor that ran through her. Her carefully constructed walls, broken down by love, were now exposed. Her old fears, the ones that told her to stay hidden, that trusting alphas always led to pain, clawed at her. But then she looked at Vorlag, his face etched with confusion and a raw, vulnerable need for answers. She couldn't abandon him. Not now. "You have to go, don't you?" Her voice trembled. She knew the truth, deep down. He needed to find out who he was. And she couldn't hold him back, even if it meant her world tilted once again. He nodded slowly, his eyes locking onto hers, a silent apology in their depths. "I have to know. For my wolf. For us." He reached for her, his large hand gently cupping her cheek. His thumb stroked her skin, a tender caress that spoke volumes. "I can't let them win. Not after—" He trailed off, his jaw tight. "Not after you saved me." Truth be told, she didn't know what scared her more, him leaving or him staying and bringing the war to her doorstep. But the choice wasn't hers to make. It was his duty, and her love. She knew she had to help him, even if it broke her heart. He was walking into a nest of vipers, and she and Omega would have to find a way to navigate a world that despised her, all because of the man she loved. The forest path stretched out before us, endless and quiet, as Vorlag walked away. He held the mooncrest symbol tight in his hand, a ghost of a king returning to his stolen kingdom. Every step he took away from me felt like a physical tearing, because my heart ached with a pain I hadn't known since childhood. My sanctuary, my fragile happiness, was suddenly gone, leaving me alone in the hovel with only the lingering scent of his wolf, a bittersweet reminder of what we'd shared. I tried to busy myself because that's what I always did. I gathered herbs, mended my cloak, and cleaned the hovel until it gleamed. But the quiet roared around me. His absence was a gaping hole in my world. My senses, usually so sharp for survival, were now hyper-focused on him, straining to feel his presence, to know he was safe. A few days later, a traveling merchant, a sly fox of a man who sometimes wandered this far out, passed near my hovel. I usually avoided them. But something inside me screamed for news. Any news. So I hid nearby, listening. He was talking about Mooncrest. He said the Alpha, Vorlag, was back. Not only that, but he was home now, safe with his Luna, Aria. My breath hitched. Aria, my name. But it wasn't me. The merchant kept talking, spinning tales of a grand celebration, of how the Luna, Aria, was so beautiful and strong, finally reunited with her Alpha after his long sickness. A cold, desolate dread filled me, chilling me to the bone. She was the false Luna in his fragmented memories, the one with the cloying rose scent. The woman from his prologue who had betrayed him. A wave of bitter betrayal washed over me. Not by Vorlag, no, but by the situation, by fate itself. How foolish was I to believe a simple Omega could ever truly claim an Alpha like him. My past fears came rushing back, loud and clear. See? This is why you don't trust. This is why you stay hidden. But even so, a fierce, protective determination sparked to life. He was being deceived. He was walking into a gilded cage. My soul screamed against it. What could I do? A lone Omega, against a powerful pack and a cunning Luna? My mind spun. I couldn't just sit there, not when Vorlag was caught in that woman's web. I had to do something. So, I waited until nightfall, the moon a sliver of silver against the dark sky. And then, I crept closer to the edge of the Mooncrest territory, hidden by the shadows of the ancient trees. My heart pounded like a drum against my ribs. Because of that, every twig snap sounded like thunder. The air around the Mooncrest borders was thick with scents. Many wolves, strong alphas, the sweet fake rose of Aria, and a faint, acrid smell of fear. But I also caught a subtle, comforting scent that felt familiar. It was the scent of oak and old leather, mixed with a hint of loyalty. It was a pack member. I waited, patient as the forest itself. Soon after, a lone wolf, large and gray-furred, slipped through the trees, heading away from the citadel. His movements were guarded, his scent agitated. He stopped near a bubbling stream, dipping his nose in the water. I knew this wolf. It was an elder, a wise one named Bran, who sometimes came to trade with the isolated communities. I had met him a few times when I was younger before I went fully into hiding. My wolf urged me forward. This was my chance. I stepped out, my voice barely a whisper. Bran? He startled, his head snapping up, golden eyes wide. His wolf rumbled, a warning, then softened as he caught my scent. Omega, but not like Aria. Who? He began. Then his eyes narrowed, recognizing me. Little Aria. It's true then, I asked, my voice tight with raw emotion. Vorlag is back? And she's claiming him? Bran's eyes clouded with sorrow. The Alpha returns, but something is wrong, child. His mind, it's not right. The Luna, Aria, she's too eager. And Silas, the Beta, always by her side. A sickeningly sweet rose scent follows her everywhere. It covers everything. His gaze met mine. He calls out in his sleep, names the stars, whispers for a true healer. He whispers your scent, child, like it's the only truth he knows. My breath hitched. He remembered my scent. That meant our bond was stronger than her magic. My hope, fragile moments before, now flared like a wildfire. She's drugging him, isn't she? I whispered, my voice sharp with newfound fury. That cloying rose. It's a distraction, a lie. Bran nodded slowly, his eyes filled with a weary sadness. He is trapped, little one, and I fear for him, for us all. He hesitated. There are whispers of a darker force behind them, an old magic. He looked around nervously. You must be careful. They watch everything. What could I do? I was just one Omega. How could I save him from his own pack? But then, an idea sparked. I knew a few things about poisons and antidotes. I knew herbs. I knew how to slip through shadows. And I knew how to survive. My love for Vorlag burned. My mission was clear. My resolve, unbreakable. The days that followed were a blur of anxious planning and careful movement. Bran's words, "He calls out. He whispers your scent," echoed in my mind, a fragile lifeline of hope in a sea of dread. I knew I couldn't just storm Mooncrest. They would kill me without a second thought. Instead, I had to be smart. I had to be like the forest itself, patient, observant, and deadly when needed. My focus narrowed, finding a way to counteract whatever false Luna Aria was using to keep Vorlag confused. I spent hours gathering specific herbs, the ones known to clear minds, to sharpen senses, to fight off dark magic. It was dangerous, because some of these grew in places close to packlands. But I didn't care. What's worse, I had a deep, burning fear for Vorlag. What if he truly lost himself? What if Aria twisted him completely? The thought was a cold, sharp knife to my heart. Meanwhile, back at the Citadel, Vorlag was fighting his own battle. I could sense it, a faint tremor in the air like a distant storm. He was pushing back against the lies. Because of that, I knew I had to act fast. I needed to send him something, a subtle sign, a whisper of truth he could hold on to. One night, under a clouded sky that felt as heavy as my worries, I saw Silas, the beta, meet with another wolf, not a Mooncrest member. The other wolf wore a dark hooded cloak. They spoke in hushed tones. I couldn't hear much, but I caught words like ritual and essence and Mooncrest's power. It was chilling. This was the dark magic Bran spoke of. This was a direct threat to Vorlag's very being. I knew I had to find a way to get my message to him, but how? The Citadel was like a fortress. My skin crawled with the knowledge that these people, these traitors, were close. They were not just hurting Vorlag. They were stealing his essence, twisting his pack. And they were going to come for me if they sensed my interference. I concocted a small, potent satchel of herbs known to clear the mind and sharpen senses. Powerful enough to cut through any potion, but subtle enough not to be instantly detected. But who would get it to him? I needed a true loyalist, someone unseen. As the tension broke, an idea sparked, risky and daring. There was a young Omega pup, a distant cousin of mine, who sometimes managed to slip into the Mooncrest kitchens unnoticed. She was small, quick, and she loved the taste of certain sweet pastries that only the head cook knew how to make. Maybe, just maybe, I could use that. What did I have to lose? Everything. But what could I gain? Vorlag's freedom, his life, and the truth. The Mooncrest kitchens, even in the dead of night, hummed with a low warmth. It smelled of sweet pastries and roasting meat, a stark contrast to the bitter scent of dark magic that clung to the outer walls of the Citadel. I watched from the shadows, hidden by a tangle of thorny bushes. My heart hammered against my ribs because this was insane. This was a direct challenge to the power that had almost killed Vorlag. My young cousin, Alara, a tiny Omega pup with bright, quick eyes, snuck out of the back door, her small hands clutching a warm, sugary bun. She was supposed to be a kitchen helper. And then, she saw me. Her eyes went wide, but she didn't make a sound because she'd been taught caution from birth, just like me. "Alara," I whispered, my voice barely a breath. "I need your help. For Vorlag." Her small face scrunched up. "Alpha Vorlag?" she asked, her voice a tiny squeak. She knew the whispers, the rumors of the sick Alpha. "Yes," I said, pulling out the small herbal satchel I'd prepared. It smelled earthy, a little pungent. "This must reach him. It will help him think clearly. It will fight the bad magic. Can you get it to him? Hide it in his food, his water? Anything." She looked at the satchel, then at my face, my desperation clear. Her small wolf stirred, sensing the deep, true need. "It's dangerous," she whispered, her gaze flicking nervously toward the kitchen door. "I know," I answered, my voice raw with urgency. "But he needs this. He's trapped. He's confused. Not only that, but he is dying because of a dark spell." Her eyes, big and serious, met mine. This was a choice for her, too. Would she choose fear or compassion? She nodded slowly, her little hand reaching for the satchel. I'll try. The cook's leave his broth on the nightstand. Relief washed over me, so strong it almost buckled my knees. Thank you, little one. Be careful. More importantly, don't tell anyone. She vanished back into the shadows of the kitchen, a tiny beacon of hope in the vast darkness. My gamble was made. My decision was set. I had stepped out of the shadows, and now there was no turning back. What's worse, as I slipped away, I caught a faint scent in the crisp night air. Not the cloying rose of false Lunar Aria, but a sharp, metallic tang of something cold and calculating. It was Silas. He was out here. He was watching. My heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird. My act of intervention had not gone unnoticed. The faint scent of Silas in the air sent shivers down my spine. He was cunning, always lurking like a snake in the grass. He knew someone was interfering. That meant time was running out. I had to assume he would tell false Lunar Aria, and because of that, they would double their efforts to keep Vorlag trapped, maybe even make him disappear for good. Meanwhile, a growing tension hummed in the air around Mooncrest. It wasn't just my fear. The Loyalists, those who sensed something was wrong with Vorlag's sudden return and Aria's strange hold on him, were getting restless. I heard whispers through the forest. A young warrior complaining about Alpha Vorlag's blank stares, an elder confused by Lunar Aria's cold smiles. Their unease was a silent fire waiting for a spark. I found Bran again, deep in the woods. He looked even more troubled than before. The whispers are stronger now, little Omega, he rumbled, his voice low. The dark magic. It surrounds the citadel. Not only that, but I've seen Silas meeting with strange wolves. Shadow figures. They reek of ancient, forbidden power. Vorlag's essence is being drained, I told him, my voice tight. They want to weaken him, maybe even kill him. And Aria, the false Luna, is helping them. They're preparing for a ritual. I sent him something, a counter potion. Bran's golden eyes widened. A bold move, Aria. Very bold. He looked around nervously, his wolf restless. But they are powerful. What's worse, they have Vorlag captive, and he is still not fully himself. He's fighting, I insisted, a desperate hope fluttering in my chest. I can feel it. He's pushing back against the fog, and because of that, we have to help him now. Before the ritual. The idea of a full-blown ritual, draining Vorlag's life force, sent a fresh wave of terror through me. Suddenly, a distant, piercing wail split the night. It wasn't a wolf's howl. It was a human scream, a chilling, guttural sound that spoke of pure pain. Bran stiffened, his fur bristling. Vorlag's sorcerer, he growled. He's here. He's unleashed something. A cold dread seeped into my bones. The external threat was no longer a distant shadow. It was here. Now. And it had found a way to link with the internal rot of false Lunar Aria and Silas. The plan was to launch a surprise attack during a pack gathering, a moment of chaos they could exploit. What followed was an understanding that their forces would be divided. It was time. The air crackled with a malevolent energy as I crept closer to the citadel. The scream had been a signal. Vorlag's sorcerer, the one I knew as the real threat behind the scenes, was already here. When I finally saw the scene, my breath caught. The courtyard was a swirling chaos of panicked pack members, dark-robed figures from the cult, and Mooncrest guards battling. Flames licked at the edges of the grand hall. And then, I saw him. Vorlag. He was fighting, a whirlwind of powerful blows, but his movements were still a little off, like he was swinging through thick mud. He was powerful, yes, but not fully awakened. His eyes still held a flicker of confusion, warring with his battle fury. False Lunar Aria was there too, standing beside Silas, not fighting, but looking smug. Silas, a sneer on his face, was pointing at Vorlag, shouting commands, trying to confuse the already terrified pack. "The Alpha is mad!" Silas roared, his voice cutting through the din. He attacks his own. The Luna's words are truth. He is tainted. My blood boiled. Fury, pure and untamed, surged through me. My Omega wolf, usually so quiet, roared in my mind. This was their chance. Their wicked, twisted chance to destroy him. And because of that, I couldn't just stand by. I couldn't. My fear for myself vanished, replaced by a consuming need to protect him. I plunged into the chaos. I moved like a streak of moonlight through the shadows, weaving between fighting bodies, my feet light, my senses sharp. I saw a cultist, cloaked in black, raise a hand, dark energy gathering in his palm, aimed right at Vorlag's exposed back. No! Without thinking, my body moved on instinct. As fire bloomed beneath my skin, my scent magic erupted, a wave of pure, concentrated, raw Omega essence. Not a sweet perfume, but a sharp, acrid burst of defensive power. It hit the cultist like a physical blow, making him stagger back, his dark magic sputtering. He looked at me, eyes wide with shock. An Omega? With power. Vorlag spun, drawn by the burst of energy, his golden eyes locking onto mine across the chaotic courtyard. In that moment, something inside him shifted. His pupils dilated. His wolf, usually so controlled, roared in his mind. The sight of me, fighting for him, combined with false Luna Aria's blatant treachery, shattered the last of the dark magic's hold on his memories. The fog lifted. His eyes blazed with full recognition, and with it, a volcanic, soul-shattering wave of pure love, absolute recognition, and desperate, primal possessiveness. "Vorlag!" he roared, his voice no longer raw with confusion, but sharp with unleashed alpha power. "Mine!" His strength surged. The cultist who'd tried to strike him down withered under his gaze. Vorlag lunged, a blur of fur and fury utterly transformed. The battle had begun. His past, his future, our fate. It all hung in the balance. "Vorlag!" My scream tore through the chaos, raw and desperate. He had remembered. His golden eyes blazed with a fury that promised a true alpha's wrath, his voice roaring my name like a prayer and a claim. But then, as fire bloomed beneath my skin with recognition, a piercing shriek ripped through the air, a sound that vibrated deep in my bones, unlike any wolf's howl. What followed was a wave of pure, dark energy. It erupted from the hooded figure I now recognized as Silas's mysterious accomplice, the true sorcerer, Vorlag. He stood high on a balcony, his arms raised, his voice, a low chant that seemed to drain the very light from the courtyard. A swirling vortex of shadow and corrupted magic swirled from his hands, aimed directly at Vorlag. My heart pounded. No! The moment of our reunion, of his full memory returning, was violently interrupted. The energy slammed into Vorlag, making him convulse. His roar of fury turned into a guttural choke. He staggered, clutching his head, his face contorting in agony. The raw power that had just exploded from him flickered, then dimmed. His wolf's presence, which had roared with triumph moments before, became a thin, desperate thread. I lunged towards him, pushing through the terrified pack members, ignoring the cultists. My own Omega scent magic, usually so potent, felt weak against the overwhelming darkness. But I had to reach him. Because my deepest fear was that this truth, this love, had come too late. That my courage had only led him to more pain. False Luna Aria, with Silas by her side, let out a cackle. Her rose scent, usually cloying, now felt laced with pure poison. "Fool!" she shrieked, her voice high and triumphant. "Did you think a mere Omega could defy me? You are nothing, and your bond, it will be broken." I reached Vorlag just as his knees buckled. He was conscious, his golden eyes filled with searing pain, but his body was failing. The dark magic was draining him again, faster than before. Not only that, but he looked at me, a silent plea in his eyes, a desperate fear for me. My world tilted. My heart ached. All of our hope was shattering. I held Vorlag's heavy weight as he slumped, his strength draining away like sand through an hourglass. His skin felt clammy, despite the roaring inferno of battle around us. The sorcerer, Vorlag, continued his vile chant from the balcony, a low, buzzing hum that vibrated in my teeth. Dark tendrils of magic pulsed from him, weaving around my alpha, tightening like a viper. My omega healing magic, usually a cool balm, felt like water on a raging fire, ineffective, weak. I tried to push it into him, to mend the damage, to fight the draining spell, but it was too strong. What followed was a wave of utter helplessness. My breath caught in my throat. This was it. This was what happened when you dared to love, when you dared to trust. My childhood trauma, the memory of Omegas being crushed under alpha boots, screamed its terrible validation. Silas stepped forward, his sneer wide, the light of triumph in his cruel eyes. He kicked Vorlag's fallen form, a casual, brutal insult. "Looks like your true alpha isn't so mighty now, little Omega," he spat, his voice dripping with venom. He was always weak, blinded by his own foolish honor. And now he pays for his arrogance. And you will watch him fall. Aria, the false Luna, drifted closer, her face alight with malevolent joy. "Such a pity," she purred, her rose scent sickeningly sweet. "A true bond, shattered. My sorcerer ensures it." She knelt, grabbing a handful of Vorlag's dark hair, yanking his head back. His eyes, though dulled with pain, still flickered with defiance, trying to focus on me. "No!" I cried, trying to lunge at her, but cultists grabbed my arms, holding me fast. I thrashed against their grip, my own wolf a furious snarl in my mind. The air thickened. My raw fury at Aria's cruel smile, at Silas's casual brutality, at Vorlag's cold, dark magic, pulsed through my veins. It was like a living thing, a burning, helpless rage. Vorlag, the real alpha, struggled, his hand reaching for me, his fingers brushing my arm. He made a guttural sound, not a word, but a desperate plea, a raw confession of fear. Then his golden eyes glazed over. His body went slack. All hope drained from me, leaving me hollow. My world tilted. Vorlag, the sorcerer, laughed, a cold rattling sound that echoed through the courtyard. He snapped his fingers, and his cultists dragged the fallen Alpha Vorlag away, his limp body a stark, devastating picture against the chaos. My struggles ceased. My muscles went slack. I could only watch, tears blurring my vision, as my mate, my fated love, was taken. False Luna Aria knelt beside Silas, her head tilted, a smug smile on her face. "The ritual is complete," she announced to the remaining pack members, her voice ringing with false authority. "The rogue Alpha is contained. Mooncrest is safe, and those who aided him, they will pay." Her gaze, sharp and triumphant, landed on me. A heavy silence fell over the courtyard. The battle had stopped, the cultists standing victorious amidst the wreckage. The Mooncrest pack members, confused and scared, stared at the scene, their faces etched with a mix of horror and fearful obedience. They didn't know the truth. They only saw their Alpha, struck down by dark magic, and their Luna, seemingly triumphant. My vision narrowed. My mind went blank. The fear I had buried so deep, the fear of vulnerability, of being hurt because you loved too much, roared back. "See?" A cruel voice whispered in my head. "This is what happens, Aria. This is what you get for trusting, for caring, for breaking your own rules." I remembered the Omega girl, dragged away, her screams. I remembered my own parents, gone too soon because they dared to defy. This was my fate. This was my curse. My chest ached. The space between us burned, a phantom pain where our bond had pulsed with so much life. It was all gone. My strength, my courage, my hope. It had all led to this, to his defeat, to my despair. Had I truly doomed him by loving him? Was this all my fault, because I dared to believe in a bond that defied my world's cruelty? In the quiet that followed, as the last of the embers cooled and the stench of blood mingled with the cloying rose, I closed my eyes. There was nothing left but crushing, desolate silence. The silence that followed Vorlag's defeat was heavier than any stone. I lay on the cold ground, my limbs numb, my heart a raw, bleeding wound. The cruel voice in my head, the one that echoed my childhood fears, roared, "See? This is what happens when you trust. This is what you get for loving." Despair, cold and absolute, threatened to swallow me whole. The fight was over. We had lost. But then, amidst the crushing weight of that despair, a faint pulse thrummed. It wasn't a sound or a sight, but a feeling deep in my chest, a warm, steady beat, like a distant heartbeat. It was Vorlag. It was our bond, not shattered, not broken, but merely dimmed, a tenacious thread refusing to snap. His wolf, that magnificent, wild spirit, whispered in my mind. A flash of a shared dream, the starlit clearing, the feeling of running free, together. It wasn't a memory of defeat, but of pure joy, of absolute connection. And just like that, the despair began to crack. My fear of vulnerability, my lifelong flaw, started to crumble. Trusting wasn't the weakness. Giving up on this, on him, that was the true weakness. A new surge of fierce, protective love bloomed in my chest. It was hot and bright, pushing back the cold of grief. My Omega wolf, once so shy, now stirred with a newfound strength. It wasn't a gentle purr anymore, but a low, simmering growl of defiance. I was an Omega, yes, but I was his Omega, and he was still out there. I pushed myself up, my muscles screaming in protest, but I ignored them. I scanned the courtyard. The cultists were busy rounding up the wounded. Silas was gloating. False Lunar Aria was basking in her false victory. No one was watching the dark archway where they had dragged Vorlag. What's more, the air still hummed with a residue of his alpha power, a faint, lingering promise. With every heartbeat, a desperate determination grew. I would not let them win. I would not let my love be his undoing. My core emotional question, can a soul scarred by the world's cruelty find the strength to trust a love so powerful it redefines reality? Now screamed its answer, yes, yes it can. I had to find him, I had to fight. I moved like a ghost, using the shadows and the lingering confusion of the aftermath to my advantage. My goal was simple, find Vorlag. The heavy scent of dark magic pulsed from the deepest part of the citadel, a sickening beacon. That's where they would take him for their final ritual. As I crept along a crumbling stone wall, I heard a low murmur. It was Bran, the elder I'd spoken with, and a few other Mooncrest wolves, huddled in a darkened alcove. Their faces were etched with despair. The Alpha, he is truly lost, one warrior whispered, his voice thick with grief. No, I said, my voice cutting through their gloom, surprising even myself with its newfound strength. They all looked up, startled, their eyes wide. Bran's golden eyes, usually so weary, sharpened with a flicker of hope as he recognized my true scent. He is not lost. His bond, our bond, it still lives. The sorcerer, Vorlag, he didn't break it. He just dimmed it. I quickly explained what I had felt, the lingering thread of connection, the flicker of his true wolf. I told them about the herbal counter potion I'd given Alara. He needs more. He needs us. We have to fight back. Now, before the final ritual. My words were like a spark in the dry tinder of their despair. Their loyalty to Vorlag, their true alpha, began to stir. Bran stood, his aged frame straightening. You speak with the fire of a true Luna, little Omega, he rumbled, his voice low but firm. My wolf recognizes it. What is your plan? We spoke in urgent whispers, the danger pressing in from all sides. My goal was clear. Get to Vorlag, flood him with my healing scent magic, and unleash his full power. And then, we would fight. Our alliance, small but fierce, was forged in that moment. Bran knew the hidden passages, the old ways. Because of that, he knew a way in, a way that avoided most of the cultists. More importantly, our combined wills, the Omega's fierce love, and the Loyalists' unwavering devotion created a palpable wave of energy. It was raw, potent, and utterly focused. What's worse, we knew the sorcerer, Vorlag, was at his most vulnerable during the ritual. We had to move fast, and we had to be ready to sacrifice everything. Our lives, our pack's future, it all hung in the balance. We moved through the citadel's forgotten passages, the air thick with dust and the scent of ancient stone. Bran led the way, his instincts guiding us through the labyrinth. We could hear the low chanting now, a sinister hum that made my skin crawl. It was coming from the Great Hall, the same place where Vorlag had been betrayed. We burst into the hall, a small but determined force against the mass of dark-robed cultists. The ritual was in full swing. Vorlag, the true alpha, was chained to a massive stone altar, glowing with a faint, malevolent light. The sorcerer, Vorlag, stood over him, his face twisted in a sneer of triumph, drawing the last vestiges of alpha power from my mate. False Lunar, Aria, and Silas watched, their faces alight with cruel satisfaction. "Stop!" I screamed, my voice ringing with an authority I didn't know I possessed. The sorcerer, Vorlag, turned, his eyes burning with dark power. "The Omega!" he shrieked. "You dare defy me?" He lashed out with a whip of shadow magic. But I was ready. My Omega scent magic erupted, a blazing shield of pure, raw essence. It met his dark magic head-on, sizzling and spitting. The impact sent a shockwave through the hall. Not only that, but Bran and the Loyalists surged forward, fighting with the fury of a pack betrayed. The sorcerer, Vorlag, recoiled, shocked. He hadn't expected an Omega to possess such power. And just like that, everything changed. My bond with Vorlag, the alpha on the altar, pulsed, hot and alive, urging me forward. "Vorlag!" I cried, pouring all my love, all my energy into our connection. His golden eyes, previously dull with torment, snapped open fully. The fog of dark magic vanished. He saw me, truly saw me, and a powerful raw roar ripped from his chest. The chains on the altar strained, then snapped with a thunderous crack. He was free! He lunged, a blur of fur and fury, a whirlwind of unleashed alpha power. He moved with the grace of a predator, his every move fueled by centuries of ancestral strength and the searing pain of betrayal. He tore through the cultists, his roars shaking the very foundations of the citadel. He moved toward Silas and false Lunar, Aria, their faces now white with terror. He then turned to the sorcerer, Vorlag, who stood frozen in disbelief. My heart ached for him. This was the true alpha, awakened by love, fighting for his life, for his mate, for his pack. The final confrontation was here. Vorlag, the true alpha, was a whirlwind of golden eyes and dark fur, a force of nature unleashed. His power pulsed, a raw, undeniable surge of strength. He moved like lightning, tearing through the remaining cultists who dared to stand in his way. He was fighting for his life, for his mate, for his pack, and his rage was a beautiful, terrible thing to behold. I stood by his side, my own Omega scent magic a blazing shield, pushing back against the lingering dark energy. The sorcerer, Vorlag, shrieked, his face contorted in disbelief as his power sputtered under our combined might. He had not expected this. He had not expected an Omega and an Alpha, truly bonded to be such an unstoppable force. "You lose!" I roared, my voice surprisingly strong, because my love for Vorlag fueled every ounce of my being. "The true Luna's light will banish your shadows." Vorlag, the Alpha, moved with swift, decisive strikes. He didn't just defeat the cultists, he dismantled them. He turned his blazing gaze to Silas and false Lunar, Aria, who cowered behind the sorcerer. Their smug expressions had melted into sheer, unadulterated terror. "Traitors!" Vorlag, the Alpha, bellowed, his voice vibrating with pure Alpha authority. "You thought to usurp my throne? To drain my essence? To betray your own kind?" He moved so fast, Silas barely had time to whimper before Vorlag, the alpha, had him by the throat. Silas's eyes bulged, his face turning purple. "Please! Mercy!" False Luna Aria shrieked, clutching her throat. Her sweet rose scent now reeked of desperate fear. Vorlag, the alpha, looked at her, his eyes cold and hard. "Mercy? You showed none." He tightened his grip on Silas, then flung him across the hall. The beta's body slammed into a stone pillar with a sickening thud. He stood over him, his powerful presence crushing Silas's will. Then, Vorlag, the alpha, turned to the sorcerer. The very air thickened. The sorcerer, Vorlag, recoiled, fear finally blooming in his dark eyes. He had underestimated the power of a true fated bond. With a final explosive surge of his alpha power, Vorlag the Alpha unleashed a wave of pure white energy, direct and precise. It struck the sorcerer, Vorlag, dissolving his dark magic, leaving him a cowering, withered shell. The source of his torment was gone. The core emotional question was answered. Our love had not only redefined reality, it had conquered it. The roar of battle faded, replaced by the stunned silence of the Mooncrest pack. They watched, eyes wide, as their true alpha stood victorious, bathed in the faint glow of the rising moon. False Luna Aria and Silas lay broken, their power shattered, their betrayal exposed for all to see. Vorlag, the alpha, turned from the defeated sorcerer, his gaze sweeping across the chaos, then settling on me. His golden eyes, now clear and full of ancient memory, held a profound tenderness that brought tears to my eyes. The space between us burned, not with heat or anger, but with an overwhelming tide of pure, unadulterated love. He walked towards me, every step deliberate, powerful, his presence filling the hall. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with a joy so intense it stole my breath. He reached me, his large hands gently cupping my face. His touch was a revelation, familiar yet new, infused with every memory, every shared moment, every agonizing separation. "Aria," he rumbled, his voice deep, strong, and full of emotion. "My Aria, my Luna, my mate." His thumbs stroked my cheeks, wiping away the tears I hadn't even realized were falling. "You saved me. You saved us." Without another word, he lowered his head, his nose tracing the line of my jaw, then nudging my neck. My Omega wolf purred, eager, joyful. This was it, the culmination of our bond, the sacred claiming. He nipped gently at my scent gland, a soft, intimate pressure, then raked his teeth lightly over the sensitive skin. Not a bite of pain, but of absolute completion, of claiming my very soul as his. A powerful jolt of energy shot through me, an exhilarating, almost spiritual release. It was our combined essence, Alpha and Omega, binding us, fusing us, until I felt every cell in my body resonate with his. This was destiny. This was true belonging. This was absolute safety. The pack, scattered and bewildered moments before, now watched in reverent awe, a deep, resonant feeling of cosmic rightness washing over them. They witnessed the true fated union, the starlit Luna finally taking her rightful place. Weeks melted into months. Mooncrest Citadel, once a place of shadows and deceit, now hummed with renewed life. Under Vorlag's leadership, the pack began to heal. He was a just alpha, strong but compassionate, his reign tempered by the horrors he'd endured and the love he'd found. And because of that, a sense of security and unity blossomed throughout the pack. I walked beside him, no longer the solitary, fearful Omega, but his Luna, his starlit Luna. My past fear of vulnerability had faded, replaced by a quiet confidence born of shared trauma and unwavering trust. My Omega scent magic, once a hidden defense, now flowed freely, bringing comfort and healing to those around me. I worked closely with Bran, rebuilding trust, helping the pack members understand the truth of what had happened. We held gatherings, shared stories, and slowly, surely, the bitterness of the past began to fade, replaced by hope. One afternoon, I sat in the restored gardens, the scent of lavender and honeysuckle filling the air. Vorlag found me there, his large hand settling gently on my shoulder. His scent, that unique blend of pine and crisp snow, was now infused with my own, a comforting, familiar warmth. "Peace, my Luna," he murmured, his golden eyes filled with deep contentment as he looked out over the thriving citadel. Hard won, but worth it. I leaned into his touch, savoring the solid, real presence of him. Every step of the way, I agreed. We had both been broken, lost, and betrayed. But together, we had found something truer, something more powerful than any dark magic. Our love, forged in fire, had not just healed us, it had healed our world. Our days were filled with purpose. We guided our pack, teaching them the importance of truth, compassion, and the strength of true bonds. And at night, under the same starlit sky that had once witnessed his downfall, we lay entwined, two souls irrevocably bound, finding profound peace in each other's arms. The quiet roar of his wolf, the soft purr of mine, a symphony of forever. This was our true beginning. Epilogue. Years later, the scent of fresh pine and blooming moon petal filled the air around Mooncrest. It was the smell of home. It was the smell of peace. Aria stood on the balcony of the restored citadel, a gentle breeze rustling her hair, watching the pack below. Children laughed as they chased each other through the training grounds. Elders chatted by the fire. Life. Vorlag joined her, his powerful arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her close. His familiar scent, a warm, grounding presence, filled her senses. "Still thinking, my Luna?" he murmured, his voice a low rumble against her ear. She leaned into him, savoring the familiar comfort. "Always, remembering how far we've come." She looked up at him, his golden eyes, once haunted, now shining with an endless love. They had built this, together, a pack born of truth, led by compassion, strengthened by a love that had defied all odds. The scars of the past remained, yes, but they were reminders of strength, not weakness. He kissed her brow, a tender, possessive gesture. "Our work is never truly done, but the foundation is strong," he whispered. "Because of you, Aria, because of our bond." And as the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold, she knew it was true. Their crimson bond, forged in fire and betrayal, had indeed claimed a fated throne and had truly healed their world. Thank you so much for watching this video. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed what you saw, we've got a whole library of other videos packed with more great content just like this, waiting for you on our channel. So, why not dive into another one right now? And hey, if you want to make sure you don't miss out on our next upload, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. We'd love to have you join our community and see you in the next video. Thanks again.